So we are in the middle of Eis Dalet, and Eis Dalet he began to explain how Yeshus and Bittul not only affect Sur Meirah, that a person that has a passion for materialistic pleasures, and he gets very drawn into it, and it could eventually lead him away from observing Torah mitzvahs properly, or doing even worse things than that. So we said that a person who's a yesh, that's the person who has to have what he wants, and he must fulfill his desires, and therefore it's so intense, and therefore it's so negative and so destructive. And this parak is going into how Yeshus and Bittul also play a role when it comes to mitzvahs aseh, observing positive mitzvahs. And he gave an example of the mitzvah of tzedakah. He says something here which is, in a certain way, a new insight into tzedakah, which you normally don't see it that way. Normally, we understand the mitzvah of tzedakah is about helping another person. That's why Hashem gave us this mitzvah, that one person should help another person. But here he says there's also another deeper intention in tzedakah. It's not only to help the other person, but it's actually to help the person that's giving the tzedakah. That the purpose of tzedakah is to develop within myself more bittul. The fact that I'm giving away of myself. And therefore he says if a person gives tzedakah in a way that they take for themselves everything that they need, and the extras, and the luxuries, and they take as much as they possibly can, and then they say, well, the leftovers, I'll share with someone else. So even though they're doing the mitzvah of tzedakah, the part that the other person who's poor is getting something, that's happening. But the part that this is bittul from my end, that's not happening. There's no bittul here. I'm not really giving away something of mine. I'm giving away only things that I feel. I'm giving nothing away except being that this is sort of extra. Okay, then I can give to another person. I'm not giving of myself. So real tzedakah is when a person gives of themselves to help another person. And again, a person who's a yesh doesn't want to give of themselves. They want and they need everything for themselves. So in a sense, what he's saying here is that all inyanim of Torah mitzvahs, they're really all a process of bittul. Tzedakah is giving away my money. And then there's bittul when it comes to learning, and there's bittul in all the mitzvahs that we do. In tefillin, in mezuzah, in shofar, in matzah. Each one is just bittul in a different way, but it's really all about bittul. And a person who's a yesh won't be able to do the mitzvah properly the way it is because they're not ready to give of themselves. So where are we up to? Yeah, I know. Oh, we turned the page now. Yeah. We're on page 7. We're explaining that a person who's a yesh also believes that the reason why they have all that money is because of their greatness and they deserve it. And even if they believe Hashem gave it to them, they believe Hashem gave it to them because they're so deserving and they're more worthy than other people. And therefore, it's for them, not for anybody else. After using the example of tzedakah, he's going to use the example of Torah. So let's start with I think we'll start with the line that begins with the word v'kadosh. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 lines from the bottom. in the middle of the line where it begins with the words "Ube'inyan Yediyas HaTorah." Just like he explained it with tzedakah, that tzedakah would be performed properly only if there's bittul. A person doesn't have bittul, is not ready to give away of themselves. This principle applies also to Torah. When it comes to the knowledge of Torah, our sages say, Ein ha-Torah miskayemes ela b'mishamemis atzmi halel. The Torah doesn't really remain or is sustained only by somebody that's ready to die for it. It's based on the pasuk in Chumash, Adam ki yamos ba'ohel. But it doesn't mean chas v'shalom in a physical way. It means in a figurative way. Misa inyam bittul. That the Torah can be acquired only in a true way if there's bittul. Was dafka yiki yakim ha-Torah. And that's why the Torah was given dafka to Neshamas Yisrael, because the Neshama of a Yid has bittul, it's inherently bottled to Hashem. Like it says, so it says, Zora HaKadosh Baruch Hu as ha-Torah v'ha-mitzvahs. The Eibishter planted the seed. So just like you plant the seed, that's how Hashem planted Torah and mitzvahs. And where do you plant a seed? In the ground. Hazriya tzricha liyos ba'aretz. When you plant the seed, you plant it in the ground. And then it would grow, and it would be so much more than what you had before. In other words, when you put a seed in the ground, you had one little thing. Once you put it in the ground, and it takes root, and then a tree grows out, or fruit grow out, or grain, or whatever it is that grows out of the ground is so much more than what you put in. So that's how the Eibush also put the seed of Torah mitzvahs and where? Ben Yidden. That's what it means by Ur Zerul at Tzaddik. What does it mean that it has to be in the ground? Because if you take a seed and you put it on the table, it'll just become rotten and nothing will come out of it. It'll only grow if you put it in the ground, nowhere else. The same is Beruchnius. The Shomesh Yisrael and B'chinas Eretz. Yidden are considered Eretz. They're like the ground, like the earth. Based on a pasuk, it says, Kisiyu atem li eretz chayfetz. The Eibush says to the Jewish people that you are to me like a desired land. Where's this pasuk? Here in the book, it's on page 58. The pasuk in Malachim. Where it's underlined, V'yishru eschem kol hagoyim, all the nations will praise you. I guess this is where Mashiach will come. And kisiyu atem eretz chayvus, because you will be a land of delight, of pleasure. That's what Hashem says. So we see from here that Yidden are compared to land. And it also says, why is it as it says, there's a passage that says Yidden are the smallest of all the nations. We always were and we still are. So again, big Gashmis means in numbers, that there are billions of people in the world, and how many Yidden are there in the world? The numbers are few compared to the billions of other nations that exist in the world. But again, the deeper meaning to the word that you're few means not small in numbers, but small in bittul. Uksiv, eretz, meretz, titzmach, emes, meretz, titzmach. The emes will grow out of the land. Again, the simple pshat is that ultimately the truth will come out, but the words in the pasuk is the truth will grow out of the land. And the Gemara says, ein emes ala Torah, that the word emes always referred to Torah, that Torah will grow only out of the land. That if a person learns Torah properly in a way of bittul, then the Torah that will grow out of that person will be true Torah. Because there's another way of learning Torah without bittul, and that's not the proper way of learning Torah. On the contrary, that'll lead to things that are destructive. The person that humiliates himself because of the words of Torah. In other words, he goes through things that are maybe not so pleasant or not so honorable, but he does it because he wants to learn Torah. At the end, he's lowering himself, but through that, he'll become higher. I mean, take, for example, the story in Gemara with Hil HaZaken. Story in Gemara was that he was very poor, and every day he earned just enough money to live. Part of the money that he earned, he used it for bread and butter, just for the basics. And the other part of the money he used to get into the yeshiva, because in those days, when you walked to the yeshiva, you had to pay at the door. If you didn't have the money, they wouldn't allow you in. And one day, the yeshiva was in session, and everyone noticed that it's darker than it usually is this time of the day. And they looked up and they saw in the skylight the image of a person. And they realized the person was laying there. They ran up on the roof. It was the snow. And the person that was laying there was covered with snow. Who was it? It was Hillel. According to one opinion, he fainted from the cold, and they brought him back to consciousness. There's another opinion, not only he fainted, he actually died. And this was one of the miracles where the tzaddikim brought someone back to life. And that was Hillel. So what did he do? He basically, like it says here, he lowered himself and made himself uncomfortable. And he did that for the sake of learning Torah. At the end, he became the great Hillel. There's a similar story with the Tzemach Tzedek, that the Alter Rebbe used to say a mimer, I think it was Friday nights, but not everybody was able to go in when he said the mimer Chassidus. It was selected people that can go in. Tzemach Tzedek was a young boy, and he also wanted to go in. But Tzemach Alter Rebbe didn't let him in. This is for the older people, it's not for you. So there were two rooms there. And one room was where the Alter Rebbe was. The other room where everybody else was, but there was a fireplace there. So in a fireplace, if you go deeper into the fireplace, you're closer to the other room. So what the Tzemach Tzedek did was he went into the fireplace and he put his ear near the wall and was listening to the mimer. In the fireplace, you can't see. In the meantime, it's getting cold. It's Friday night and it's cold. So they asked the person who worked in the courtyard, he wasn't Jewish, the way they were allowed to do on Shabbos, they hinted to him that it's too cold, we need to warm up. So he went, took firewood, he lit the firewood and put it inside the fireplace, and all of a sudden the wood came flying back. And he started to scream, there are ghosts here, like how could wood fly by itself? And of course everyone ran, and there was the Tzemach Tzedek, and he fainted because when he put in the firewood, it caused a lot of smoke, and he fainted. And they couldn't wake him up. Alter Rebbe had to come himself, and he woke him up. And then the Rebbetzin, remember the story that the Tzemach Tzedek's mother gave up her life for the Alter Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe raised him, and the Rebbetzin, they raised him. So the Rebbetzin, of course, was very emotional and said to the Alter Rebbe, look what you did, why don't you let him go in? So the Alter Rebbe answered that he has to know that or he should know, or he knows that to acquire Torah comes from a serious nefesh. Again, that doesn't mean we have to go run to fireplaces and Chas v'shalom put our life at risk. He was the Tzemach Tzedek, and he was meant to become a Rebbe in the future. So he had to go through this kind of a process. But that's what it means, that if a person lowers themselves in order to learn Torah, which means he goes out of the way and he puts himself in uncomfortable situations. Of course, he wants to learn Torah, then ultimately he'll be raised to a much higher place. He lowers himself, the reward will be Hashem will raise him. But lowering himself is in a bittul. What does the Gemara mean literally when the Gemara says lowering himself? So Rashi says the following: Pirush Rashi, Sheshoyel Merabai calls Fekaiser. He asks his friends all his questions. Sometimes when you ask a question, someone else, other students could look at and laugh. What kind of question is that? How did he ask such a question? Doesn't he know the answer? So sometimes people refrain from asking questions because they're embarrassed of the other students in the class. And this is a person that says, I need to learn Torah, and I don't care what, I'm going to ask my questions. That means he has bittul because he wants to acquire Torah. Because of Meshuv Shifrus. Mashain Kain Hamanusa, but a person who is very high in his own eyes, Eine Klila Lakus, he's not a vessel for godliness. This is what it's all about. That's Cholos Avedase. That he has to work hard. Tzarech liagei atzmei. V'yigias nefesh. V'yigias basar. He has to labor lachni hagasa shabei in order to humble that arrogance that he has in him and become more refined. These mebchinas shiflus. V'oz yochalis karav lalakus, and only then can become close to godliness, both in davening and in learning. So it's not that a person can't learn Torah and understand the logic and the questions and the answers. If you have a brain, if you're intelligent, you can understand anything. We're not talking about learning for the academic sake. We're learning about becoming a vessel for godliness, becoming close to godliness. That can only be when there's bittul. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that the only place that Hashem is revealed is where there's bittul. And where there is yeshus, then Hashem can't be revealed. So whether it's mitzvah of tzedakah, whether it's the mitzvah of learning, it still always has to be with bittul, which is the same thing that we spoke about before, the aretz. Davening needs aretz, learning needs aretz, tzedakah needs aretz, which means at the core of every mitzvah, it's really all about bittul. Now, it doesn't say it here, but I did what? I just learned that you have to ask the question.
What it means, Igiat Basar? Igiat Nefesh and Igiat Basar.
Igiat Nefesh and Igiat Basar. I guess Igiat Nefesh means that you are investing. Let's say, for example, you're learning something and you have a question. And you say, okay, I don't know the answer. Why am I saying that? Because to know the answer, I really have to press the buttons in my brain to understand it. It's hard work, intellectually hard work. Yigiyas Basa means sometimes it's physically hard work. I have to be up late at night till I learn this and figure this out. Sometimes I skip a meal because I want to. In other words, sometimes physical things that I have to go out of my way for learning, and sometimes there's emotional, intellectual things we have to go out of my way in order to succeed in learning. Like, for example, let's say when it comes to davening, and you have to concentrate in davening. Like, one of the issues with davening is to concentrate, because we know that just when we daven, we have a lot of guests that come to visit our brain. Everything that's going on in my life wants to get attention right then and there when I'm in the middle of davening. And we have to not be distracted. To work hard and say, I'm going to concentrate on the words. I'm not going to let these thoughts, that's called Yigiyat Nefesh. It's not a physical, it's Yigiyat Nefesh. And then when there's sometimes it involves Yigiyas, the physical Yigiyah, which means the hours that I put in physically, sleep less or eat less. Again, we are not into those kind of things. But I'm saying sometimes there are situations where a person has to give up certain comfort in order to be able to succeed in learning. That's called Yis Nefesh Givus Basar. So if a person has bittul, they're ready to do that. Without bittul, they're not really ready to do that. Okay. So now we learn up until now that yeshus is not a good thing. It has to be bittul. Okay. Now that I know the information, so what do I do about it? If I know that I have yeshus, what can I do in order to eliminate that and to develop this bittul? So that's what he's going to go into in Ois Hey. But before we go into Ois Hey, we'll take a little break and we'll do a little review. So don't forget what we learned before. I think we reviewed Ois Aleph, but we never reviewed Beis or Gimel. Or Dalet. So let's do it now. So let's go over the questions. Let's start from Aleph. Let's go over the questions. Let me give you 5 minutes to look at the questions in Ois Aleph. That's on page 21 of the booklet. And we did Aleph. So let's do Beis, page 22. That's where we're up to. We did two also? We didn't do Aleph? Oh, we did the vocabulary. Okay, so let's do the questions. Let's do Aleph first, give you 5 minutes, and then we'll do the answers.
Have another copy of this one?
Yes.
Are we supposed to translate these?
What?
Are we supposed to translate these?
No, we're doing this. And we're going to answer these questions.
Okay.
Page 21.
Sure.
Okay, we shall begin. Question number 1. What are the 4 levels in the descent of the neshama in the guf? We say in davening every day, and I assume that everyone here must have said it just about an hour ago or something. Right, the Kai neshama shenasatavi, Tahirahi, the neshama descends to Atzilus, Barasa, to Bria, Yitzarta, Yitzira, and then into the world of Asiya and the Guf. Those are the 4 levels, the 4 worlds. Number 2, is it the main part of the neshama that remains Lamaila, and a small part is invested in the Guf, or the reverse? The main part is invested in the Guf, and a small part remains Lamaila. Which one? The first. Number 3, does the above mean that the neshama is in 2 places at the same time, in the Maila and in the Guf? How can that be?
Because it's reflection. No? It's part. You have like a small part.
Right, but how can it be in 2 places at the same time?
It's only a half. No?
Right, not the whole neshama. But that means that one part of the neshama is in one place, and the other part of the neshama is in another place.
Like a mirror or something like heaven, like above happening.
Hello. We need a little bit more explanation. If someone would ask you this question, how would you answer it?
It's the idea of the davening where the upper,
What?
the idea that we learn that the davening refers to down to up and the turn up to down.
I don't get it. What?
I'm thinking in another way to stand, but
Remember we said that when you say Lamaila or Lamata, up there or down here, we don't mean space. When you say there are 4 worlds, it's not that one is near Jupiter, one is near Mars, and one is near Earth, and one is someplace else. It's not space.
Spiritual.
Right, higher and lower is spiritual. What? Right, that's the part of the neshama that doesn't change. When we say it's Lamaila, it means it doesn't change in terms of its seeing and feeling and experiencing godliness. But it's not Lamaila in another location. It's not location, not a geographic location. In general, whenever you talk about these words in Chassidus, to remember that's what we mean. We mean in a higher level. If you say that the price of this is higher than that, this is $1,000 and this is $200. The price is higher. Where is this price and where's the other price? It's not in space. Number 4, where do thoughts of tshuva come from when the person did nothing to make it happen? It comes from the neshama up there. And why does the neshama up there get all excited? Learning. And also another thing he says, he hears the heavenly voice. Right. Number 5, where do new insights, this is the answer to this question, where do new insights that suddenly enlighten a person, where does that come from? Because the neshama l'mayla is learning, and when the neshama l'mayla learns, it sends signals down here to the neshama. You have a good chavrusa, that's the part of the neshama, it's up there. How does the Al-Sheikh explain the words lech lecha? Go to you. Where are you going? Right. You going to you means go to your essence, to the source of your neshama. Connect the conscious you to the source of your neshama. And then you'll be able to accomplish all the things you need to accomplish. What would you say is the main point brought out in this ois? What? I would say even one step behind that, the main point is to explain that there are these two levels of the neshama. That there's the part of the neshama that's above and part of the neshama that's in the body. Okay, now we'll do ois beis. Is 5 minutes too long? We'll make it 4 minutes.
What is accomplish?
To accomplish maratzim lahasig. Ma matara sheratzim lahasig b'tfilah.
Can we read like Tzitut in Hebrew?
Yeah. Okay. What does the ladder in Yaakov's dream represent? Davening. Why does the ladder have 4 rungs? What? So first I would say what you said is the answer to number 3. And the answer to number 2 is because davening has 4 parts. Halachically, the davening is divided into 4 parts. Each part becomes more strict regarding the laws of interruption. So the next question is, why does the davening have 4 parts? Because it corresponds to the 4 worlds.
Because what?
It corresponds to the 4 worlds. Number 4, in context of this mimer, because the answer to number 4 and different mimer will be very different. What is the objective that we want to accomplish in davening? More specifically, again, in context of this mimer, like what's the goal of this ladder? Of course, it's connecting to Hashem, but it's specifically connecting the part of my neshama that's in my body to connect it to the part of the neshama that's higher than my body. What is it that he said in the Maimer is the gateway through which the neshama comes down and the neshama goes up? Which sphere? Which one? The source is from Chochmah, but it says it goes through Malchus, and Malchus is connected to Chochmah. But it's Malchus.
I didn't understand.
What?
I didn't understand that. What? No.
But it says that the neshama comes into this world, it has to go through and be processed through Malchus Uvatzilus, the sphere of Malchus. And therefore, when the neshama wants to go up and reconnect to Hashem, it has to also go through Malchus Uvatzilus. And it's true what Dvorah said, but then he adds that Malchus itself comes from a higher source, which is Chochmah. But generally speaking, we say the source of the neshama is Malchus of Atzilus, and that's one of the reasons why it says Atem Tieli Mamlechas Kohen V'Goy Kodesh, that we're Mamlocha, we're Malchus. Every year is called B'nai Malachim, and other terms of royalty because of our source in Malchus. So just like the neshama came down through the sphere of Malchus, that's how the neshama goes back up, also through the sphere of Malchus. What is that? So we said, number 6, what is unique about Eretz Yisrael? Again, in context of this Maimer.
It's the land of life, because when you have done the prayer, go to the Eretz Yisrael and then go to Shemayim.
Right. So Eretz Yisrael is called Eretz Chaim, the land of life, because it corresponds to Malchus, which gets its sustenance from Chochmah. But again, Eretz Yisrael corresponds to the sphere of Malchus of Atzilus. So what is the significance that the ladder is standing on the land? I might as well say the significance is that everything that goes up and everything that comes down, physical and spiritual brachas, it all goes through Malchus. That's why the ladder, the davening, has to be connected to the land, because the physical land, Eretz Yisrael, this is the manifestation of Malchus here on this world. So what would be the main point of this ois? The main point of this ois would be why the ladder has to be standing on the land. So in this ois, he explains it because the land is Malchus. And the next ois is going to explain, okay, what does it mean in terms of practically serving Hashem? And that's where he goes off to say that Malchus is bittul. By the way, the sphere of Malchus is also identified by this trait of bittul. Malchus is the sphere that receives from the other spheres. So Malchus is bittul, and that's what he's going to explain. How can a person succeed in davening? How can a person succeed in learning? The rest of the Maim is all about this point, about the bittul. So we don't have enough time for that. I guess we'll do Gimel and Daled tomorrow, Mirz Hashem. And once this half of the Maim is clear, then we'll go off to the next part of the Maim. Again, this part of the Maim explains how important it is to have bittul. The next part of the Maim explains, so how do I overcome that? How do I acquire bittul?